Welcome to the Cheating Wife Stories channel. As I entered the house, my wife's excitement was palpable. She hurried over to greet me with a warm kiss before darting back into the kitchen to put the finishing touches on dinner. "I made your favorite tonight. And guess what?" she exclaimed, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. "I have some exciting news to share." "That's fantastic, dear," I responded with a smile. "Coincidentally, I have some big news too. Perhaps we should have a double celebration." It was Friday evening, marking the end of the work week. While she wrapped things up in the kitchen, I headed to the bedroom to freshen up and change into more relaxed attire. With tomorrow off, I eagerly anticipated spending a leisurely night with my wife, filled with intimacy and conversation about our respective news. The thrill of sharing and celebrating together filled me with anticipation. I'm Jack Martinez, and my wife is Caroline. We've been happily married for 7 years, both of us now 30 years old. Standing at 6'2" and weighing around 210 pounds, give or take a pound depending on the day, I like to think I'm in pretty good shape. While I don't consider myself a heartthrob, I've been told more than a few times that I'm above average in looks. Caroline, on the other hand, stands at 5'6", and maintains a lovely weight of 110 pounds. She's also quite fit, just like me. We're both regulars at the gym. Caroline has long blonde hair, captivating brown eyes, and a stunning figure that never fails to turn heads. Lately, I had a strong inkling about what her news might be. We'd recently embarked on the journey of starting a family. Caroline had stopped taking birth control pills a few months back, and ever since, our time in bed had seen a significant increase. Now, don't get me wrong, we weren't exactly celibate before this change. In our first year of marriage, we were at it almost every night, gradually slowing down to an average of 3 times a week thereafter. However, since Caroline went off the pill, we'd ramped up our intimacy even more. The only times we put it on hold were when I had to be out of town for work. I didn't have to travel much for work. Typically, I was at my office by 7 a.m. and left around 5 p.m. As a mechanical engineer, my schedule remained fairly consistent, with only occasional deviations for conferences or seminars happening about once every quarter. Recently promoted to engineering manager, I now oversaw a team consisting of 5 junior engineers, 3 engineering technicians, and a couple of secretaries, along with my own personal secretary. Caroline, my wife, worked as a paralegal for a small law firm in town. Among 5 lawyers, she was one of 3 paralegals, and her schedule mirrored mine in regularity. The only changes occurred when she had to stay late due to occasional issues with significant cases. After showering and changing, I entered the kitchen just as Caroline was setting dinner on the table. It was evident she had gone the extra mile for this evening. I suspected she had taken the afternoon off to prepare. On the menu was chicken scallopini, accompanied by a delightful Caesar salad and garlic bread. To top it off, she had prepared tiramisu for dessert, and even uncorked a couple of bottles of excellent Merlot to complement the meal and savor afterward. Caroline's anticipation was palpable, evident not only in the exquisite meal, but also in her attire. She was adorned in one of her most attractive dresses, suggesting she anticipated a night filled with passion and excitement. Her news promised to be something truly remarkable, and I couldn't wait for our conversation later that evening. After we finished dinner and dessert, I pitched in to help Caroline clear the table and tidy up the kitchen. We topped off our wine glasses and made our way to the living room, eager to share our respective news. Seated on the couch, we engaged in the customary back and forth about who would go first. Caroline's bubbling excitement made it easy for her to volunteer. She could hardly contain herself, her happiness practically radiating from her. I half expected her news to burst out spontaneously. "We did it, sweetheart. I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby," she exclaimed, her joy palpable. "That's incredible," I exclaimed, overwhelmed with happiness. Caroline flung herself into my arms, showering me with passionate kisses. As we embraced, sharing in the overwhelming joy, I couldn't wait to share my own news with her. With a beaming smile and infectious enthusiasm, I revealed my own thrilling announcement. I got my secretary, Eva, pregnant as well. I revealed to my wife, my excitement evident in my tone. Since she's single and doesn't want to raise a child alone, we've decided that she'll give her baby to us to raise. It'll be like they're twins. Since you and Eva will be delivering at about the same time, they'll actually be twins in every way except for blood. And since I'm the father, custody won't be an issue, especially since she's willing to sign off on me taking custody. All she wants is to be involved as more of a favored aunt to the child. We'll probably need to explain it to him or her when they're old enough to understand and accept it, but that shouldn't be a problem. I eagerly awaited my wife's response, but instead of the happiness I anticipated, I was met with a severe lack of joy. In fact, she appeared angry. It puzzled me. Here I was, sharing news of our family expanding, and yet her reaction was one of extreme hostility. I was genuinely taken aback. Her distressed expression gave me pause, but I felt she needed to know the full extent of the situation, hoping it might turn her upset back into happiness. Her initial ultrasound also indicated that she was having twins. I continued attempting to maintain my excitement, despite my wife's unsettling reaction. Although it's still too early to determine the sex, there's a good likelihood that at least one of them is a girl. Maybe it'll be one of each. Just imagine, you can have the little girl you've always wanted, and I can have the little boy as well. Whichever one you're having will be a bonus. We'll instantly have the big family you've always wanted. However, instead of the joyous response I anticipated, my wife's anger only seemed to intensify. I couldn't comprehend what was happening. And then, like a sudden explosion, her pent-up fury erupted. "You sneaky cheater. You cheated on me with that woman from your office," she accused, her voice trembling with rage. "What the hell were you thinking when you did that? Do you really think I'm gonna raise her kids? Are you out of your mind?" The situation rapidly spiraled downhill from there. For the next half hour, she unleashed a torrent of insults, hurling every imaginable slur in the English language at me. It seemed like she even invented a few new ones on the spot. This was far from the scenario I had envisioned. It became increasingly clear that my hopes for a night of passionate lovemaking were rapidly dwindling. Nonetheless, I remained undeterred. "Sweetie, how about we retreat to the bedroom and celebrate our shared good news?" I suggested, attempting to salvage the evening. "I'm confident that after a night of passion, we'll gain a clearer understanding of what our lives will be like with 3 new additions to our loving family." To my surprise, not only did she vehemently reject my proposal, but she had the audacity to attempt to banish me from sleeping in my own bed. Eventually, consumed by rage, she stormed out to the spare bedroom, clutching her pillows. I was genuinely bewildered by her behavior. Nevertheless, feeling justified in my actions, I rolled over and slept peacefully for the remainder of the night. The following morning, my attempts to coax my wife into her bed were met with continued resistance. She remained irrationally angry with me, and her refusal to communicate only added to my confusion. Realizing that her emotions were beyond my influence, I opted to seize the opportunity presented by the pleasant weather and headed out for a round of golf. I met some cool people there, one guy, his wife, and her sister. With the wife's sister, we bonded really well, and in less than 3 hours, we got to know each other from a new side, if you know what I mean. Upon arriving home, I was taken aback to find my garage door opener malfunctioning. Puzzled by the unexpected glitch, I investigated further, checking the batteries to no avail. Deciding to approach the front door instead, I was met with an even more perplexing sight: several suitcases stacked neatly on the porch. Despite my confusion, I shrugged off the oddity and attempted to unlock the front door only to discover it securely fastened. While this wasn't entirely surprising, given that I typically left through the garage in the mornings, what struck me as strange was the fact that my key failed to fit the locks. Upon closer inspection, I realized they appeared to be brand new, a detail that Caroline had never mentioned. Determined to gain access to the house, I set aside my bewilderment and focused on finding a solution. Feeling hot and weary from the day's activities, I retrieved my sawzall from the truck and swiftly took action, cutting through the door, around the doorknob, and deadbolt. With the obstruction removed, I made a mental note to replace the door and proceeded inside, eager for a much-needed shower and change of clothes. Upon entering the house, I was met with yet another tirade from Caroline. She mentioned something about me moving out and my clothes being packed in the suitcases outside. Feeling puzzled, I retrieved the suitcases and brought them back indoors, sorting through my belongings and returning them to their rightful places in the bedroom. As Caroline's rant escalated, she began accusing me of infidelity. I couldn't fathom where she was getting these ideas. Sure, there was that one time with Janice, but it was just a brief fling. Well, okay, maybe more than brief, but it was a one-off occurrence. I hardly knew Janice. Attempting to defuse the situation, I suggested we take a shower together. But Caroline vehemently refused. It dawned on me that she might be grappling with some underlying psychological issues that needed addressing. Resolving to broach the topic of counseling later that evening, I proceeded to shower, hoping to wash away the tension of the day. After a refreshing shower, I returned to the bedroom to dress, only to discover Caroline packing her belongings into the empty suitcases. Inquiring about her sudden actions, she retorted that since I refused to leave, she would instead. Apparently, while I was showering, she had contacted her sister, arranging to stay with her. My attempt to rationalize her behavior by attributing it to pregnancy hormones was met with vehement rejection. Despite my certainty that her pregnancy was impacting her reactions, she angrily dismissed my explanation. I reassured myself that once she gave birth and my secretary's twins came home, she would embrace motherhood with grace. Confused by her sudden departure, I watched as she left an hour later, leaving me bewildered and unsure of what to do next. A couple of days later, I made the decision to move Eva into my house. With her pregnancy and Caroline's departure, it felt like the right thing to do. After all, the twins were mine, and Eva needed support during this time. However, my plans were abruptly interrupted when I was served with divorce papers a week later. Caroline was seeking ownership of the house, 18 years of maintenance, alimony for those unfamiliar with the term, 90% of our savings and investments, and $1,500 a month in child support. In essence, she was fully enforcing our prenuptial agreement, particularly the clause pertaining to infidelity. Yes, I was well aware of its existence. 3 months later. What the hell? My wife Caroline's voice pierced the tense atmosphere of the lawyer's office, marking our first meeting to discuss our impending divorce. As we sat across from each other, I couldn't help but acknowledge that Caroline had a potent tool at her disposal, our meticulously crafted prenuptial agreement, designed to make infidelity sting deeply. And with ample evidence of my indiscretions, she had every reason to wield it mercilessly. Yet, despite the gravity of the situation, I couldn't help but question her resolve. "Are you really sure you want to go down this path, Caroline?" I inquired, hoping for a glimmer of hesitation. Her response was swift and unforgiving. "You cheated on me. You got your secretary pregnant and had the nerve to think I would agree to raise her children," she retorted, her words laced with indignation and betrayal. "Caroline, right here, right now, I'm presenting you with a one-time offer," I declared, my tone resolute. "We call off the divorce, reconcile, and raise all 3 children together as our own. We leave the past behind and commit to each other once more. These 3 babies will be solely ours. Yes, Eva will play a role as the favored aunt to the twins, but that's as far as it goes. You'll be the loving mother to all 3, and I'll be the devoted father. And who knows, maybe we'll even have 1 or 2 more. The decision is yours. Yes or no. Damn you. I'm not going to raise any of your children with that woman." Caroline spat back, her anger palpable. I exchanged a knowing look with my lawyer, affirming our understanding. Fortunately for me, I had retained the most formidable, ruthless, and determined legal representation money could buy. While it might seem as though I'm painted as the villain, eager for my comeuppance, hold on to your judgment. It's about to get interesting. My lawyer unfurled her briefcase with a grin reminiscent of a barracuda poised for a feeding frenzy. Since your client has declined my client's generous offer, here is our new proposal, she announced, sliding the papers across the table. It took a few moments for Caroline and her lawyer to read and comprehend the document. That's when Caroline erupted as described earlier. As their smug expressions morphed into panic, I could swear Agata, my lawyer, practically salivated with anticipation. Yes, she was truly ruthless. Caroline's lawyer turned to her, his expression one of sheer panic. DNA testing, Caroline stammered. Absolutely, I confirmed. With another nod at Agata, she produced an audio recorder and placed it on the table, her finger hovering over the record button. So, how are you making sure it's going to be my kid and not the cucks? The voice on the recording belonged to Martin Hill, a lawyer at the firm where Caroline worked. No problem. Caroline's voice responded confidently. You look enough like my husband that he'll never know he's raising your child. Good, just as long as he raises my kid right. I have no intention of having to pay for or deal with kids myself. I do like the idea of having a kid to eventually pass along my inheritance to, but it'll have to be after they've become an adult. When the kid turns 18, we can let them know who their real father is. That way, I won't have to pay a dime to raise them. Trust me, Jack will never know until we tell your child in 18 years. Then it'll be too late. He and I will have a few more children together by then, and he won't be able to do anything about it without being completely screwed. So, you're sure your husband won't find out about us? Martin Hill's voice echoed through the recording. We've been having an affair for the last 3 years, and he hasn't had a clue. You look enough like him that any kid we have will resemble him closely enough that he'll never suspect it isn't his. We'll be fine, Caroline's voice replied confidently. The expression on Caroline's face when the recording played was priceless. Agata then passed over a motion to have Caroline's fetus DNA tested and another motion to sue Martin Hill for child support, requesting $2,000 a month. Given his success as an attorney, it seemed a reasonable ask. All right, since your client rejected the last proposal, here's the new one. It'll require a postnuptial agreement signed by both parties. The divorce proceedings will cease, and the couple will remain married until the last child graduates from high school at a minimum. If they both agree, they can choose to continue their marriage. The postnup will retain terms from the prenup, but with a few adjustments. Firstly, the marriage will become open, allowing my client to pursue other relationships as long as he informs his wife beforehand. The same applies to the wife. Any children conceived thereafter will be solely the responsibility of the married couple. However, any children conceived accidentally, regardless of whether carried to full term or aborted, will trigger the terms of the postnup, Agata concluded. I observed as Caroline's complexion drained of color, her shock palpable as her affair was laid bare. Agata's smile took on a predatory edge as she pressed forward. In the event your client rejects this proposal, we are fully prepared to enforce the prenuptial agreement on our end, Agata stated firmly. Her affair commenced nearly 3 years prior to my client's indiscretion. In fact, he only embarked on his affair after meticulously documenting his wife's betrayal and her intention to conceive another man's child. Should she pursue divorce, she should anticipate being left destitute, without a home or financial security. Furthermore, all her acquaintances will be provided with evidence, videotapes depicting her engagement with a man who is not her husband. We are prepared to take drastic measures to ensure her complete ruin. Caroline glanced at me, signaling her readiness for me to speak. Caroline, you schemed for me to raise another man's child. While the baby inside you is innocent in this deceit, I refuse to bear the responsibility for your actions. However, I am willing to accept the child into our home as a stepchild, provided your lover assumes financial responsibility. He will cover monthly child support, health insurance, medical expenses, and education. Though I doubt he'll seek visitation, it will be available if desired. He will also fund the child's college education. That is the cost of his actions. He may have claimed to shun parenthood, but he will now bear its weight. As for you, your consequence for betrayal is to raise my children as your own. They'll be yours in every way except biologically. Only those in this room and Eva will know the truth. You found it amusing to have me raise another man's child. Now you'll find irony in raising another woman's children. You'll also welcome Eva into our home when she desires to visit the children. That is your penance. You dare to seek divorce over my infidelity while carrying on a lengthy affair yourself. How hypocritical. My affair only ensued after uncovering your betrayal. I heard your plans to have another man's child while ensuring it wasn't mine. Eva was willing to bear my children, provided she wasn't left to raise them alone. 18.5 years later. You mean Aunt Eva is really Diana's? Diana's voice faltered. But what about Uncle Nat? Laura interjected. Yes, Eva had twins. Diana was born a minute before Laura. Donnie, Caroline's son, came into the picture 3 days earlier. There were more than a few surprised faces when we introduced the triplets to our friends and family. Eventually, everyone came to accept it, though there were some curious remarks about where Diana and Laura's red hair originated. Those pesky recessive genes. No, your Uncle Nat came later. Your Aunt Eva became pregnant while she was single, and she believed that it would be best for you two to be raised by a married couple. Since we were close friends, I agreed to adopt you both, as she wasn't in a position to raise you alone at that time. By the time she met and married your Uncle Nat, it would have been too difficult to change things. Now that you both know the truth, understand that your mom and I love you just as much as if you were our biological children. Nothing has changed in that regard. Also, remember that your aunt and uncle have their own family. You'll always hold a special place in their hearts, but that doesn't alter the fact that we're all family here, I concluded. They were intelligent kids. Would they comprehend? Did we truly need to disclose? Perhaps, perhaps not. There were valid points on both sides. Ultimately, we decided they should know, so we shared the truth. We also revealed to Donnie that I wasn't his biological father. That was a different conversation. He never crossed paths with the scoundrel. The scoundrel attempted to contest the paternity suit, but DNA doesn't lie. He tried to evade payment, but judges tend to frown upon such defiance. They also have the means to enforce their rulings through sheriff's deputies, who can pay unwelcome visits to individuals at their homes and workplaces. As for the notion of an open marriage, I did have a few more encounters with Janice and Eva, and I dated for about a year until she met Nat. Regarding Caroline, I'm fairly certain she never strayed. I kept a close watch, though. Once Eva and I concluded our affair, I refrained from pursuing others. I presumed Caroline had learned from the experience, and I made it clear I'd resume if I detected any signs of infidelity. As far as I could discern, she remained faithful, and I monitored closely. Moreover, she endeavored to foster a bond where I relied solely on her, which worked both ways. Martin Hill vanished shortly after Jack's 18th birthday. He had already established a college fund for Jack, but despite our offer of visitation, Martin showed no interest. Speculation circulated that he relocated to the East Coast, though a more reliable rumor placed him just 5 miles beyond the coastline. Of course, this particular tidbit remained confined to a select few. Patience was my virtue when it came to settling scores. I couldn't allow him to evade child support and college fund payments. As for Caroline and me, it's been 19 years since our turbulent ordeal. I diligently conducted my investigations and found no evidence of further indiscretions. Remarkably, she evolved into a devoted wife and mother. Contemplating early retirement, once the kids depart the nest, seems plausible. Some might deem me weak for forgiving her, but what good would scorching her yield? Perhaps Eva and I could have pursued a relationship, but it's irrelevant now. What matters is I wasn't ensnared in raising another man's child. Though I played the role of father, I viewed it differently. Martin footed the bill for raising him, while I seized the chance to ensure he was raised with integrity, steering clear of becoming another scoundrel. Furthermore, by remaining with Caroline, I ensured our 3 children were nurtured in a loving environment with both parents, a triumph surpassing external judgment. Epilogue. It's been another 10 years. This is my confession. I'll be honest, as I sit here and reflect on my actions in the past, I can't help but feel regret. Years later, I realized that adultery is an insidious path, fraught with pain and consequences that reverberate far beyond the moment of the careless act. Even innocent people can suffer because of it. In my case, children. My affair with Janice and the subsequent exposure of Caroline's betrayal shook the foundations of our marriage, leaving scars that took years to heal. Looking back, I realized the folly of my actions, the selfishness that blinded me to the pain I had caused my wife and family. Yes, my wife committed sin too, but I speak for myself now. I am haunted by the realization that my momentary weakness caused irreparable damage to the trust and intimacy we once shared. Caroline's forgiveness and our eventual reconciliation were not without difficulties. The road to rebuilding our relationship was long and difficult, marked by moments of doubt and uncertainty. But I guess it had to be. Our children, who are grown and thriving on their own, make me happy and give me inner strength. Despite all the turmoil of raising them, they are thriving, their spirits unbroken by their parents' mistakes. I am overwhelmed with pride as I watch their accomplishments, and their laughter is a balm to the wounds of the past. As I look to the future, I can only hope that they will learn from my mistakes, that they will cherish the sacred vows of marriage and honor the trust of their partners. May they never succumb to the temptations that led me astray. May they forge relationships built on honesty, respect, and unwavering devotion. In the end, I am grateful for the second chance I've been given, for the opportunity to right the wrongs of my past and embrace the blessings of my present. And though the scars of my transgressions may never fully fade, I take solace in the knowledge that redemption is possible, that love, true and unconditional, has the power to conquer even the darkest of sins. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.